December 20th, 1944. The Sonoran Desert stretches endlessly under a pale winter sun, its brittle cacti casting long, spindly shadows across the sand. Trains screech to a halt at the camp's rail siding, the screech echoing off distant mesas. German prisoners of war, weary from long transit, step off the cars in dusty uniforms, boots scuffed and faces drawn. Among them is Leutnant Carl Weber, 24. Recently captured in the Italian campaign, eyes wide with apprehension as he scans the perimeter of Camp Papago Park near Phoenix, Arizona. Carl mutters under his breath, his voice carrying over the clamor of guards shouting orders. He notices the tall, barbed wire fences topped with coils of razor wire, sentries pacing with Thompson's submachine guns, and the familiar hum of American trucks. The desert air, dry and stinging in the nostrils, is a far cry from the mud and drizzle of northern Italy. The prisoners are herded toward their barracks, wooden structures hastily converted from pre-existing military storage. Inside, a faint warmth from wood stoves cuts through the chill. Carl runs his fingers along the rough planks, noting the neat arrangement of bunks, clean blankets, and surprisingly abundant rations stacked on the shelves. Murmurs rippled through the group. Camp is organized, almost civilized. A young corporal nearby whispers, "They treat us, well, as if the concept is foreign." The notion of humane captivity has yet to fully register. Outside, in the compound's central yard, the first hints of Christmas are already visible. Piles of logs for communal fires glow faintly in the late afternoon light, and small groups of American guards and staff begin setting up rudimentary decoration strings of colored paper and handmade wreaths. The sound of laughter, distant piano notes from a recreation hall, and the clinking of utensils from the mess hall feel incongruous, almost surreal to men hardened by months of battle. Carl is handed a blanket and a small loaf of bread. "For dinner," the guard says in broken German, smiling briefly. Carl clutches it to his chest, bewildered. Others in the group exchange glances that range from cautious optimism to disbelief. Many have heard rumors of POW camps abroad, tales of deprivation, forced labor, and mistreatment. This, so far, contradicts every expectation. By late afternoon, the sky takes on a deep amber hue, the desert heat fading rapidly. Camp bells jingle softly, signaling the approach of the evening meal. As the prisoners line up, they are offered plates of roast beef, mashed potatoes, and seasonal vegetables, a far cry from the thin soups and stale bread they endured in field camps. The smell alone triggers whispers and subtle smiles. Some soldiers hesitate, unsure if they are permitted to eat so freely. Carl takes a tentative bite, eyes scanning the camp to ensure no trap awaits. There is none. Later, in the barracks, Carl discovers small parcels stacked neatly on each bunk. A pair of socks, a bar of soap, a tiny chocolate treat. The handwriting on a folded note is carefully legible. Fro Wennington. His fingers tremble slightly as he unfolds it. The gesture, so simple, strikes him with a mix of incredulity and warmth. Across the room, other prisoners examine their gifts with similar awe, passing them around, murmuring in low voices. Carl leans against the wooden wall, listening to the soft hum of conversation and occasional laughter. Outside, the desert wind whispers through the barracks slats, carrying with it the faint aroma of pine from the camp's few small Christmas trees. He has survived capture, endured forced marches, and faced the chaos of battle. And yet, here, in the middle of the Arizona desert, he finds a humanity he had not expected, an enemy offering warmth, nourishment, and the semblance of normalcy. The camp slowly settles as night falls, fires crackling in the central yard. Carl watches the flickering shadows play across the sand, his mind struggling to reconcile the cruelty of war with the kindness displayed here. Questions he has never asked begin to surface. Are all enemies so human? Will he remember this beyond the war? For the first time in months, he allows himself a fragile sense of comfort, knowing the day's small miracles, roast, beef, gifts. Laughter will linger in memory far longer than any battlefield victory or defeat. December 24th, 1944. The Sonoran desert air is crisp, starlight glinting off the barbed wire fences, and a cold wind rattles the barracks windows. The prisoners awake to a day unlike any other in their lives behind enemy lines. From the mess hall wafts the scent of freshly baked bread and spiced cider, mingling with the faint aroma of roasted meats. Carl Weber rubs the sleep from his eyes, hearing distant piano notes carried on the wind, a melody he vaguely remembers from childhood Christmases in Munich. Outside, small groups of American guards are decorating the main compound with evergreen boughs, handmade paper chains, and improvised wreaths crafted from desert plants. Strings of bare electric lights cast soft, uneven illumination, flickering across the desert sand. The prisoners gather, cautious but curious, as a single, modest Christmas tree is erected in the center of the yard. Its ornaments are sparse, some improvised from tin cans and colored paper, yet to the German soldiers it is a symbol of wonder, of a culture far removed from the war they know. Carl and his fellow prisoners exchange bewildered glances. "See, my hen, das, for uns," mutters one, incredulous. The idea that their captors would go to such lengths for their comfort is almost impossible to comprehend. Even seasoned soldiers, hardened by combat, pause to watch as American nurses and volunteers distribute small gifts, warm socks, chocolates, and handwritten notes with cheerful holiday greetings. The sheer effort invested in creating a festive atmosphere strikes many as surreal. By mid-morning, the mess hall has transformed into a hub of warmth and activity. Tables groan under the weight of roast turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and pies. Prisoners are encouraged to serve themselves, an act that feels revolutionary to men accustomed to strict rationing and harsh discipline. Carl hesitates before picking up a plate, scanning the room as if expecting a trap, but none comes. Laughter, polite chatter, and the occasional clink of cutlery filled the space, stark contrast to the tense silence of battlefield encampments he had known. Small choir of American volunteers, local civilians, and military personnel begins to sing traditional carols, their voices rising over the desert stillness. The prisoners, uncertain at first, soon join in haltingly, the melody of Still Not Dressed through the open-air mess hall, sung in German and English, creating a bridge between enemies. Carl feels a lump in his throat. It is the first music he has heard in months that does not signal alarm or danger. As night descends, a communal bonfire is lit in the yard. Shadows dance across the faces of men who had once been enemies, now sitting side by side on logs, sharing stories of home, of family, of holidays past. American guards pass out small mugs of cocoa, and prisoners huddle close to the flames. Carl unwraps a small chocolate bar, letting it melt slowly, savoring the sweetness as he listens to the soft crackle of firewood. For a moment, the war feels distant, suspended, replaced by a fragile, shared humanity. Letters and memoirs from the time later recall that many German soldiers found this experience almost incomprehensible. How could an enemy, whom they had been trained to despise, offer kindness so openly? How could the traditions of a distant land, so foreign, bring warmth and levity in a place designed to enforce captivity? For Carl and many others, the memory of this Christmas Eve would linger far beyond the end of hostilities. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, compassion could persist. As the desert wind carries the last notes of carols across the compound, Carl gazes at the small tree, its ornaments glinting in the firelight. The juxtaposition of the stark desert and the tender celebration inside the camp strikes him deeply. Here, in a remote corner of the United States, the machinery of war momentarily pauses, replaced by a simple truth: humanity can exist even between foes. for Carl, for the men around him, and for the guards orchestrating the day's events. This Christmas becomes a silent lesson in empathy, one that would echo for decades after the guns fell silent. December 25th, 1944. Dawn breaks over the Sonoran desert with a pale, almost fragile light. The barracks are quiet, save for the occasional creak of wooden floors and the soft shuffle of blankets as prisoners awaken. Outside, the desert stretches endlessly, golden sands meeting the horizon, punctuated only by distant cacti and the silhouette of the barbed wire perimeter. For the men of Camp Papago Park, Christmas morning brings both stillness and reflection. Carl Weber rises slowly, still digesting the extraordinary experiences of the previous evening. He steps outside into the cold, the desert wind biting at his cheeks. Round him, other prisoners emerge from their bunks, eyes glazed with thoughtfulness rather than fatigue. The camp is calm. The air carries a mixture of smoke from last night's bonfire and the faint sweetness of pine needles from the modest Christmas tree. Carl notices American guards performing their routine inspections, yet their faces show a relaxed, almost festive ease. Even in uniform, there is a subtle warmth in their demeanor, a humanity Carl has rarely encountered. The prisoners gather again in the mess hall, where a modest breakfast has been prepared: eggs, toast, coffee, and the remnants of holiday baked goods. Conversation is hesitant at first, but gradually, stories begin to flourish. Collections of Christmases past in small German towns, memories of families and distant loved ones, childhood games in snow-laden streets. For some, laughter breaks through the years of hardship and loss, a rare reprieve from the weight of war. Carl listens, absorbing the voices of men who, until weeks ago, would have been training to kill or evade capture. By mid-morning, the camp authorities invite prisoners to participate in small recreational activities. Tables of card games, board games, and improvised competitions are arranged in the central yard. For many, these moments of play are disarming. Men who have been trained to view each other as enemies now cooperate, joke, and share smiles. Carl hesitates before joining a group, then slowly settles in, feeling the surreal yet undeniable pull of normalcy. For the first time since capture, he feels not like a soldier behind enemy lines, but like a man temporarily freed from the constant pressure of survival. Letters and memoirs collected after the war indicate that these small gestures, decorations, gifts, shared meals, music profoundly affected the prisoners. Many wrote of their disbelief at the kindness, the unexpected generosity, and the humane treatment they experienced. Carl reflects silently on the contradiction. The same nation whose military had fought them fiercely on European battlefields now offered warmth, sustenance, and celebration. This stark juxtaposition begins to reshape his understanding of the enemy and, by extension, the war itself. As the day progresses, a quiet ceremony is held in the yard. An American officer delivers a short speech expressing hope for peace and goodwill, emphasizing that even in captivity, respect and dignity must endure. Carl listens, nodding subtly, feeling an unfamiliar sense of inclusion. The German prisoners, many with tears glimmering in their eyes, respond with soft murmurs, some in broken English, some in German. The moment is not grandiose. It is simple, grounded, and profoundly moving. By evening, the desert sun dips low, casting elongated shadows across the camp. Fires burn brightly in the yard, and the prisoners gather once more, sharing small treats, conversation, and reflection. Carl stands at the edge of the group, gazing at the horizon where the desert meets the sky. Memories of battlefield carnage, fear, and loss remain, but they are tempered now by a profound realization. Even in war, empathy and humanity can persist. The experience of this Christmas in 1944, unexpected, tender, can deeply human will stay with him long after the guns have fallen silent. A reminder that kindness can transcend borders, uniforms, and enmity.